Yeah, well, let's get started. We got a weird week this week. Thanks all for joining on Twitter and, of course, listening on your favorite podcast tunes. I know there are a lot out there. So last week, we always start off this show with kind of a question that I like to ask Drew. It can range from how worried are you about a golfer playing bad or playing good. And I got a question about the types of winners we're seeing throughout the start of the season. And I had a philosophy coming into the season that this whole live kind of breakup would cause the better players to get better, whether it just be because they have just a little bit of animosity or there's more eyes on them, so they're wanting to perform at their best every time. I mean, we're seeing Rory McIlroy win every time. We've seen on the PGA Tour, we're 4 events in, and basically I would say the chalk has won every single week. Max Homa was 20 or 30 to 1, but still in the top 5 or 10 of the odds favorites going into the week. So do you think that trend continues throughout the rest of the season? Are we going to see any triple-digit winners this year?
I don't think so. Maybe you get something weird at one of the weaker field events, but for the most part, yeah, it does seem like the long shots are closer to the 50 to 1. I think Pat's mentioned that on his show a few times, and it does seem like the better players have kind of separated themselves, and that's really where the chalk's going to hit every week. And the long shots are just, they can't contend. Sunday, I would have assumed, I think the betting market was agreeing with me that Ron was going to beat Ryder, even having a 3 or 4 shot lead. But there's plenty of other guys. Hideki made a run, Finau was close, and ultimately Homa won. So it's just, the field is so deep at the top level, and it's just really hard for any of those long shots to have a chance when the field is that strong. This week might be different. Maybe we get one of those guys that come in like a Ted Potter at 500 to 1 or something.
Yeah,
there's only 4 guys that are really like strong favorites. And last week, I feel like even if you were 20 or 30 to 1, you're still one of the top. I mean, you're still a very strong favorite.
Yeah,
against the rest of the field, I should say. So yes, to your point, it's really hard to see a 3-digit winner at some point this year.
Yeah, so it seems like you're pretty worried about that. As I am, we all, of course, love to find that long shot. But I will say, with betting markets opening up, except for the state that you and I live in, at least to our full capacity, there is plenty of ways to bet on these golfers this week. I know FanDuel is offering some make the cut parlays, which I'll get into one of my favorites when we give out those bets in just a little bit. So a couple of other things from last week. Obviously, we know pressure golf is very different, especially when you're playing with the hottest golfer in the world and Sam Ryder. Feel for him, but still a huge finish for him. And I want to go biggest statistical standouts. I'm going to list off a couple of guys that were over 50% positive in both their approach shots and their off the tee shots. So pretty good form ball striking, at least last week. You tell me any names that stuck out to you. All of these names are playing this week. I just want to make that clear. So Justin Rose, Robbie Shelton, S.H. Kim, Tom Dietrich, Ryan Palmer, Joe Bramlett, Alex Smalley, Austin Cook, and Satoshi Kodaira. Those last 2 pretty deep down the board this week.
So the S.H. Kim stood out to me because I've been trying to watch some of these guys, the rookies that are showing some consistency. Kevin Yu I like quite a bit. I've been playing him a lot. But S.H. Kim is, during the fall swing or the end of last year, was really, it seemed to be excelling on the greens. And it seems like so far this year, he has started to pick up a little bit with his iron. So I think he's really interesting. He finished T20 last week in a pretty strong field. And again, this is a golf course where, you can't really overpower it. But if his putting is good, that's a big – that can definitely help. And we've seen Jordan Spieth kind of do the same thing here. I'm not sure I can categorize them the same in respect to you, but I do think that there's a element of, there's less demand off the tee in terms of accuracy because you don't have to hit drivers as much. And the putting and short game really comes in. And he's typically pretty strong putter, and his short game is actually above average. So I think S.H. Kim is the guy I've been watching the most.
Yeah, I think that's a really unique name to keep a look at. He's starting to gain a little bit of steam, but still it's not going to approach the 15 or 20%. I can't imagine. Maybe in a field this week he will on the DFS side, but certainly in the betting markets, looking at those, adding him into the make the cut parlays or even starting at top 20 for him, I think he's trending in the right direction. Name that stuck out to me is Robbie Shelton, his second go around on the PGA Tour. Obviously, first time he was just outside of the top 150, I believe. Had to go back to the Corn Ferry Tour, ended up making it back and has looked good. 2 top 10s, RSM Classic put up one, American Express a couple of weeks ago. And again, he's a guy that the ball striking looks pretty good. I think he's pretty comfortable this time around. So don't know if you had any thoughts on Shelton. Obviously, when he came out of college, he had some pretty big accolades.
He did. He was one of those guys. He kind of had the Patrick Rogers aura coming out of college, where he was supposed to be a can't-miss kid. And it's too soon to tell if he'll ever be like a Smiley. But yeah, he's definitely a guy that I looked at last week. I thought from a distance standpoint he would fit the category. But yeah, he just has too many inconsistencies. He's been up and down. So
what do you make like last week, 74, 75, 76 at Torrey South? Obviously, none of these courses are Torrey South this week, but still a little concerning.
Just from a ball striking standpoint, I mean, like off the tee and approach, like that, it's like you'd like to see. And again, you're kind of nitpicking on against like the top tier guys, but like generally you'd like to see some consistency off the tee and approach, not necessarily losing off the tee and then gaining an absurd amount in approach. It's never like a good thing. So that would be my only issue, is he has not shown me the consistency that I would want to see, but he's got the upside. And again, this field is so weak compared to last week, and even the last couple of weeks. Yeah, it's a different ballgame.
Totally agree. He does. It's weak part of his game is off the tee right now. But if he gets, courts like these where maybe, at Pebble, you certainly don't hit driver quite as much, but that could hurt him as well. Tom Dietrich continues to just play solid golf here on the PGA Tour. And a nice transition for him over from the European Tour. We know he's got talent. We've watched him for a couple of years. He's basically made every cut. I mean, he put up the second at the Bermuda. Is this a course rotation for him that you like, or do you think the price is getting too expensive?
I don't mind him at the price. I'm not sure if it's the best course fit for him, but at the same point, I think Hovland also sets up well here. So it's not really a distance thing. It's really tough to gauge on these really, like, I think Pebble and Spyglass are really unique. Like Monterey is a little bit different because the green size are so big, but the Pebble and stuff, they just can't really overpower it, and how that translates down to hitting less club off the tee to get to where like a Kevin Kisner would hit it, as an example. It does pose an advantage. So I don't think the price is an issue. I've been playing him the last couple of weeks. He is playing 3 weeks in a row now. I think it's very interesting because like Dean Burmester is a little bit cheaper, and he was really popular last week. And I don't know if people will go back to him. He just hasn't shown a ton of pop. So I think Dean Burmester is an interesting one down there that this golf course could set up well for.
For sure. And I've got a couple of other names, which we will get to throughout the thing. But let's just cover the AT&T really quickly just for the setup. I know most people probably know it, but we'll let you know anyway. I'm going to start off at Monterey Peninsula only because, so it's a 3 courses, 54-hole cut. It's a Pro-Am, so they're going to play in twosomes. Long rounds, laser only at Pebble Beach, so we're only going to have strokes gained for one of the 3 courses. Course rotation I'm going to go over is the main one, which most of the better players are playing on this week. So you start at Monterey Peninsula, you go to Spyglass, and then you end at Pebble. And, of course, everyone plays Sunday at Pebble. Monterey Peninsula and Pebble are probably the easiest of the two. Spyglass Hill could play maybe over par, but likely not for this wave, Drew. Between Peninsula and Pebble, which one are you going to focus on for your showdown lineups? And again, it probably is more wave-oriented because obviously the better players that I just mentioned are starting at Monterey, and that's likely where the scoring average goes each day.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so you got to watch out for that because you'll see scoring average trends on each course, but you'll look at the strength of the field essentially on that day. Can be drastically different. So I think Monterey is definitely the easiest golf course. It's just there's less penalties into the greens. But Pebble is certainly scoreable.
With no wind and all that stuff.
Right. So, yeah, I would look to the top guys. I don't really care so much which course they're playing. And then for the cheap guys, I definitely want to focus on the Monterey Peninsula side. There's less room for error. Or I should say more room for error. There's less room for like a complete debacle. That's kind of the way that I would view it, is kind of in 2 tiers. Where's the top guys playing? I want to play them kind of regardless of where they're at. And then the cheap guys, I want to focus around Monterey.
Yep, I think it's a great plan. Mine as well. Looks like we're probably going to get somewhere in the mid-teens to upper teens in terms of the winner. it will obviously be an under par cut with it being 3 days.
It's super interesting because like Monterey is almost double. It's not quite, but it's close to double the green size that like Pebble would be.
Which is crazy.
It's funny. Which is nice from a ball striking standpoint. But what's funny is like they also projected. I don't know how it's going to actually play, but they typically have the Monterey greens running like 2 feet faster on the spin meter, which is to me is a huge difference, especially on a day-to-day change. So, I mean, you're going to have, some longer putts and they're going to be rolling 2 feet faster on average. And then they go to Pebble and the greens are super small. So you're going to have shorter putts, but it's a lot slower. So it's really, I've never paid attention to it, but I'm curious how the make rates change for like these guys
going from one to the other.
Play Monterey and then they go play Spyglass because Spyglass was set up similar to Pebble when I looked. So just from a playing aspect, I thought that was really interesting. I'm sure most of the listeners can probably imagine when they've gone to play like a public course where the greens are super slow and then a private course where they're fast, it's tough to adjust sometimes.
Yeah.
And these guys are, 2 feet's a pretty big difference.
Hey, it was tough for me to adjust from Saturday to Sunday in my tournament this past weekend. They double cut and rolled them for the Sunday, and I just got demolished when I was above the hole. Now, are these guys better than me? Well, certainly would hope so in that regard. Maybe I can match Luke List in a putting competition, but that might be it on the PGA Tour. Although he would probably end up beating me when it comes down to it. In any case,
he's probably a lot better in real life than you think.
Yeah, exactly. He's putting on these PGA Tour greens, which are probably faster than what I was on this weekend. So, funny enough. So let's just dive a little bit deeper into Pebble. I know it's only 2 of the rounds, but we know a pretty good amount. There's a tournament here every year. There's obviously the US Open every now and again as well. We're going to get a ton of shots from 125 and under. We know it's a short course, and we're also going to get on the par fives. We're going to get 2 to 250. About 50% of the approach shots will come from those 50-yard buckets per se. So I would say like mid to short irons, the 6 to 9 irons are almost irrelevant this week. Or I won't say irrelevant, but they're way below the statistical average.
Yeah, it's a very short golf course from today's standards. I think an interesting stat, just kind of touting the EAP model really quick, is so all of our numbers, most of our numbers besides like scrambling and a few others, are all weighted to the field for historical purposes. And one thing that I love using this week that I don't typically use is driving accuracy, and it's weighted to the actual event. So for example, like Kapalua, where driving accuracy is at like 80% or whatever.
Yeah, I might be able to hit those fairways.
Right. So like if you miss one fairway, you're pretty much negative to the field.
Yep.
And if you hit 100%, you're really not gaining as much on the field as you would if you hit 100% here. So I'm looking at weighted driving accuracy quite a bit this week because it is relative to the courses that they've played. Hand in hand with greens and regulation. Greens and regulation is probably my favorite stat for this type of event. But you're right on terms of proximity. All the shots are going to be, short irons and wedges. I mean, not even short irons, just wedges. So I think that's important to look at. But I do want to kind of emphasize that I think the weighted driving accuracy is an interesting stat that not many people will look at. And again, it does weigh it to, if the guys are hitting it 270 off the tee laying up or 250 off the tee laying up, how often are they hitting the fairway more than the field? So this is perfect example for that type of golf course where just a raw driving accuracy number will not help you.
Really simple way to find this stuff. It's part of our Fantasy Golf Bag Premium membership, and it's in the FGB mixed model. You'll see it right there, tee to green with data right underneath. You'll have your 4 different weighted elements. And Drew, this week, as you just mentioned, he's about 5% on the weighted driving accuracy and 15% on the greens and regulation for his model. So really good stuff.
Actually, I've updated that to 10% driving accuracy and 20% green regulation just since this morning.
There you
just
go.
To get a better look. So you can, like I said, you can tinker around with it, but it is weighted. So that's what the W stands for there, Jason. Weighted.
With data. Yep. Not with. Sorry.
But yeah,
I'm an idiot.
It's just a huge difference between just getting, he hit 70% of the fairways. Well, yeah, but did he hit 70% at Kapalua? That's not good.
Right, exactly. and the nice part is when you do change these weightings up at the top and in that column B, which you'll be able to see it when you pull it up, it will give you a new model rank. So really cool, really unique feature. Great way to look at the data. You can also look at the putting data, which is on the other side as well. Just some really good stuff. Okay, so let's Now take that yardage bucket that I just described that is important. Then also you can give me some names on the driving accuracy part as well. Couple names that I had stand out. Webb Simpson. What are we going to do with this guy? Let's just start with him for a couple minutes.
Oh, it's definitely a better golf course fit than last week. Let's see. So he doesn't rate out terribly well. He's pretty much below average in most of the approach stuff.
Yep.
And he's slightly above on our spectrum data, which is a good sign. So,
right. That's kind of where I found him. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I weighted greens and regulation and that driving accuracy number pretty high. He's basically even with the field averages he's played against. So he's okay. I think at the price he's playable. If he was any more expensive, it wouldn't be a play.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think this is a better golf course that again, you can't overpower it necessarily.
Let me put it to you this way. When I look at Justin Rose's salary of $9,500 and one of the top 10 favorites in the field, if you were going to tell me a year ago that Rose was going to be $9,500 and Simpson was going to be $7,700, going total opposite ways, I would have never believed you, but here we are.
Yeah. I bet their strokes gained total chart is probably inverse. Like it was both like separating,
Yep.
was going down, Webb was going up, and then it's completely switched trajectories. So yeah, it's very weird to see some of these guys making a move. And like Jason Day last week, we talked about him on the show. Jason Day was going to be pretty popular, and it's like, yeah, it made sense to chase it at that point for the golf course history he had, and he played great.
He did. He really did.
So I don't know if I can expect the same for Justin Rose, but it is a little bit of like you're scratching your head. What's changed in the last year? Is this back to his 2010 days, 2015 days, or is this just like a little blip?
A little blip along a longer term path of decline. Yeah,
exactly. So it's interesting.
Russell Knox, he's kind of had a good start to the season. Statistically speaking, on the approach side, strokes gained approach, he's one of the best from this yardage buckets that I pulled out from our Spectrum data. One of the best. Are you just firing him up in all places you can this week?
I do like Russell Knox a lot this week. A big reason for his, good approach numbers is his lack of off the tee numbers. So it kind of goes hand in hand. If you're decent with your irons from a longer distance, you're going to be looking better from a total strokes gained approach perspective.
Yep.
But yeah, I think I've played him here every single year. His green regulation number is really high. It's 5% over the field, which for $7,500 is pretty cheap.
Yep, that's kind of what I was looking at.
His number is also good. He's just not very long. And again, it's not important here. I mean, this golf course, kind of blanket approach here, but like Pebble is just 6,900 yards or so.
Yeah.
Playable.
Yep.
It's just
Spyglass is a tough golf course. Yeah. Comparatively, Spyglass is much tougher.
Spyglass is tough.
Yep.
Yeah, but they're only going to see it once. So again, you can't really slice it too many different ways, or you're just going to be all over the place. So I'm just trying to focus a little bit more on Pebble, and I do think Pebble has some carryover to Spyglass to some regard.
Yeah, I do as well. Tom Hoagie up at the top. I mean, this is obviously, at this point, it's almost becoming an obvious play. He's defending champion, playing well. Everything looks good. You have any reservations playing him at 10K, though? I mean, he was 9.9 a couple weeks ago. And yeah, I know that's the thing. Tom Hoagie, 10K.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to – the guy's been playing great. But when you look at Matt Fitzpatrick and Hovland right above him, it's probably speaks for you. But, like, Fitz and Hovland are just a little bit of a tier, maybe 2 tiers above Hoagie. And Hoagie's playing great right now. So maybe at this point in time, it's not the same discrepancy. But, I mean, if you look through the board, like, we have some weighted stats for, like, how often is he hitting approaches inside of 18 feet or 12 feet. And he's way above.
It's so good. He looks like one of the best iron players in the world right now.
And it's tough to bet him because he's going to be short odds. But yeah, I think in GPPs, that's probably a really good play because he does grade out extremely well in our model. And with Fitzpatrick and Hovland right above him, not many people – and I've heard a lot of chatter about power, which we could talk about, which is kind of some funny stats I've heard.
Yeah.
But Tom Hoagie, I think, is actually a really interesting play. I don't have the ownership pulled up for our site at the moment. I can pull it up, but I'm sure he's probably like half the ownership, if not less, than Fitz.
Yeah, 100 definitely agree there. What do you do with a situation like Joel Damon, who grades out one of the best in the models, looks good from the statistical categories that he'd need to? New dad, hasn't played this year, taking some time off to try to adjust to that. And you and I both know firsthand that that's not the easiest thing sometimes. But nonetheless, he's here to play golf this week. What do you make of Joel Damon? He is getting a lot of steam, though, around the industry.
So a lot of the data. So I don't know how many rounds pulled into the 5 team.
Let's see. I think I see like 15. 17 laser rounds.
Yeah, for 10T.
Yeah, for 10 tournament.
A little bit shorter term.
Yep.
The only reason I brought that up is most of the good data is from like the fall swing, which has been over 2 months now, almost 3 months because we're in February.
Yep.
I'm not as interested to jump right back onto Damon, and it's for 2 reasons. One is, yes, he played great in the fall, but we haven't seen him in a couple months, and there's other guys around him that we've seen I can at least feel like I trust a little bit more. But he also doesn't putt particularly well in POA, which of all the services, I think we brought this up last week or the week before. POA is the one that I think guys, I mean, Bermuda for sure, but I think POA is another one that guys tend to putt well on better than the rest. And he does not generally play great on POA courses. So he has a few good finishes here. He had a T6 here last year, T14 in 2020, but he has a mixed bag of missed putts here too. So, and just poor finishes. So I'm not too eager to jump on the Damon, especially if he's going to be a little bit more popular due to his fall swing events.
So one of the guys that I would say needed it to add a little bit of distance off the tee. If I had a top 5 of guys, Brendan Todd would probably be number 1. Mm-hmm. But funny enough, he actually has. He did that speed training, and they've talked about it. We know how good of a putter he is. Statistically, approaches look okay from here. Is he somebody you want to jump into in these weak fields? We've seen him do pretty good in the past in them.
I don't mind him on this type of golf course. He doesn't have great course history necessarily and doesn't have great recent form, but he does grade out well in certain stats that we do track. So it's like a buy low candidate, I would say.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't have too much on him besides like the numbers show he's showing some signs of exceeding his expectation of his price. So I think he's fine.
Yeah, I think that's a good description. Eric Van Rooyen is $100 more than him and grades out at least a lot better in the both 5 and 10. And he has had a really good start to the season, has gotten himself mixed up in a little bit of Twitter fun as well there. So obviously I would seem to suggest that that would lead to.
Like for context, like Brendan Todd. So like I just told you, I bumped up the driving accuracy, which is weighted.
Yep.
And the greens and regulation, which is also weighted. So it's not like these huge greens. Again, Kapalua is a great example. He's hitting almost 10% more fairways in the field weighted, and he's 3% over the field greens and regulation. So like his basic stats for just playing good golf are really good. He's just not very long off the tee. He's 15 yards shorter than the average PGA Tour player, which is terrible. So I don't think that's a problem with this golf course.
Yeah.
Everything else points to he's trending right, and our Spectrum data kind of takes out the outliers, which is also a good thing to look at.
Right around that same price area as well. Guy that seems like he was close and now is regressing. I'm a fan of his. Does have a good start here. I don't think it was on the PGA Tour though. I didn't look into what it was, but I'm talking about Will Gordon. He's coming in at 7,600. Guy that I think you and I both like his talent, but certainly seems to be in a little bit of a lull. Would you rather just go down to some of the other guys we've talked about, like SH Kim, Russell Knox, or are you going to buy into Gordon at least a little bit?
Yeah, I'm still fine with Gordon. So, like, the miscuts don't concern me. His underlying stats still look good.
Yep.
One guy that does stand out to me, so Gordon I'm fine with. I've been playing him a lot, and I'll continue to play him. He's underpriced still, even though hasn't performed and had, like, good finishes. The other guy, though, that I'm starting to jump on, which is a really ugly price this week, but I'm going to give it a shot, is Davis Riley. So he has not particularly played well, and I don't think anyone will play him. I played him last week, and he played okay through the first round on the North course, I think. But there's some underlying stats that actually look pretty good. And I think at 7,800, this is an interesting golf course where you get one of these guys that come out of nowhere. And again, like I said, there's some stats with our Spectrum approach, weighted greens and regulation, that look like he's going in the right direction. So I do like Davis Riley and GPPs.
I do as well. He's a name that I'm going to talk about in just a minute as part of my make the cut parlay bet that I really like.
Because he was so popular last year.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, he's been playing pretty poorly, but like I said, our goal is to project, not just look at has he been
the last 2
in the top 10.
Right.
So it looks like there's a trend upward.
Agreed. Going down the board a little bit, 2 guys at 7,300, Grayson Sigg and Justin Suh. both of these guys. I think you and I talked about Grayson Sigg last year at this golf course being just an absolute perfect fit. And Justin Sue is simmering. He can't quite get 4 rounds in. I'll say he gets 2.5, making every cut. So what do you make of these two guys? Do you favor one or the other, or maybe somebody else in this range?
Definitely favor Sig. So I tend to just play Sig here. He has a pretty good record as far as a course fit. He's not the longest guy, but his accuracy is good.
Yep.
It's a lot of greens. And he's actually, I think I tweeted this out 2 years ago. In college, he won the Carmel Cup that's hosted here. So he does have some good vibes. So it may not be as good as Hovland with the U.S. Open, the USAM.
Yep.
Good finishes, but I do think Sig is a great fit, and he actually has some success here, so he should feel comfortable. So I would lean Sig for that reason. Sue, I've been having a tough time peg. Like I think he's super talented, but he just hasn't shown me a lot of upside consistency or even just consistency in general.
Yeah, we haven't gotten into the top 25 yet, and at some point, I love following these guys and playing them, and sometimes they pay off. Obviously jumping on Morikawa early that paid off. But at some point, yeah, I'm going to have to probably pull the plug. At least he's not killing me, though, given that he's pretty much made every single cut.
He had a good start last week, right? Like, didn't he open Thursday pretty good? I don't know if it was North Course, but I'm pretty sure I saw him playing well, and then it just kind of sputtered. So
yeah, it struggled in the conditions, and then played okay over the weekend. I think he shot 1 under on Sunday or even par. So again, he was okay, and I think that's why I'm kind of sticking with him, because he's not necessarily hurting me. Is he winning me a large field GPP? No. Is he helping me get to the cash line? Yeah, probably. And if you do play cash, I guess that's a situation where maybe you would want to look at him. But now that we've pretty much mentioned all 4 of my guys, I want to tell you this one. So like I said, Sue's been making the cut pretty regularly. We got Alex Smalley, who's playing good golf, Davis Riley, who you just mentioned, and then Ben Griffin, who is priced a little bit above all these guys, who I think you're going to probably agree that you like this week, maybe not in the DFS price, but you can pair all 4 of those guys over on FanDuel to make the cut. It's a 40-1 payout. Now, again, I know we need a lot to happen for guys to make the cut, but all these guys seem to be playing well, maybe except for Riley. So is that something that you'd want to join, or would you want to maybe go to a 2-leg or a 3-leg if you were going this route?
No, I'm fine with that. Like I said, Riley, again, hasn't been playing well, but there's signs that pointing to him starting to play well. And I'd rather be early than late. For a made cut, for a parlay, maybe go somewhere else. Again, it's kind of two different things. Sometimes you bet people, and sometimes you play them at DFS, depending on ownership. So yeah, I think that's fine. Like a 4-legger.
Maybe even adding in Grayson Sigg instead of one of those other guys. Again, they're all around plus 110, 120 to make the cut. So, a round robin out of 4 or 5 guys is something that certainly I'll be doing this week, getting involved with. Again, I think making the cut here it's 156 golfers in the top 65 and make the ties, but at least you get 3 days. And typically over 3 days, the better golfers will end up rising to the top. So, all right, now we'll end it off with just a couple of DFS talk. Discussing, which way we want to go. You already mentioned Tom Hoge, you think is great for a large field GPP. Let's say you're putting in your one lineup this week, your main lineup. Who's the first guy you're starting with? Playing Spieth here has not really hurt you for the last 10 years. He's made the cut in each of them. Only finished outside the top 20, once? It looks like his Augusta numbers, and he missed the cut at Augusta last year. So what do you make? Are you going to Spieth, or are you just going to go down to somebody else?
It's really tough. I do like Hovland. Fits with only, I think, 1 start here last year, right? I can't remember if he played. So, yes, it's really between Spieth and Hovland. With the pricing, I think from a hand building perspective, when you start scrolling down and you start to look at who else could I start instead of, who could I save money and then start instead of Hovland or Spieth?
Yeah,
you're really not looking great. You got Kuchar, McCarthy, Mitchell. It's just pay up and try to get a value that gets through the cut line. I will say, since you'll probably say Spieth, I'll just say Hovland.
Okay, I might do both. The only problem is that might take me out of the Maverick McNeely range, which I do think he could win soon. He hasn't put up the top stats that I'd like to see and say, yeah, I know he's playing in his backyard this week. We've seen him have big-time finishes here. I think 9,600 is a really appropriate price. If I remember last year, he was cheaper and he was very, very popular. And he finished like T20 or T30, something like that. But I like his price, and I think I am going to play him when I don't play a Spieth Hovland lineup. Are you okay with Maverick, or would you rather play Justin Rose?
No, I do like Maverick. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I kind of snubbed him last week, and he got off to a pretty good start. I got lucky with the one and done with Tony Finau, but it was down to McNeely and Finau, and ended up going with Finau, and it looked pretty bad on Friday or Saturday. Friday, I should say.
Yeah, Friday. Saturday looked fantastic.
The Wednesday to Saturday.
Oh, it's all. You know what? It's really messing me up. The third round, he had a fantastic round. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So yes, I do like McNeely here. The one funny one though, I'll mention, and hopefully our FGB members are listening. I've heard a couple things on Seamus Power.
Yeah. Let's talk about Seamus. Yep.
On coastal courses, and the stat that I was tossed to was 50% of his top 20s have been on coastal courses, which in my mind, I think 50% have not been on coastal courses. So.
My question would be,
that's a good stat, right?
Aren't like 50% of the courses, at probably on a coast at this point? I mean, maybe not 50%, but I mean, if you include in the stats over in Europe, it probably is. Right. Anyways, that's a funny one.
That's what he said. Yeah. Don't you like him? He really does well on coastal courses. 50% have been top 20. So his inland courses, 50% are top 20s. That's great. Really good stat.
Might actually be
John Deere for that stat, and then I can play him here for the other half of that stat.
Beyond the stats, he does look pretty good. He
does look good.
He did come out firing last year, but he's in good form now. He was in great form last year, so I don't have a problem with him. But I would rather go Spieth Hovland or Hovland McNeely or Spieth McNeely before I go to Power. I think this week.
It's just a tough price to get to. And I think there's a lot to be said. Like, we've seen Graham McDowell play well here, and there's some Irish vibes, I guess, for the coastal scenery and stuff. So it does make sense for Power to play well here. But there are guys, just going up to a Hovland or Fitzpatrick for not much more. Feel like the win equity, the ability for them to stay in for win equity over the weekend is much higher. So that's kind of where I lean. And like I said, the Hoagie one is a great GPP play.
Yep.
And I think
I'm going to use that there.
Maybe gets a little bit more ownership, so I probably just would go Hoagie, to be honest.
Yep. I think that's a great call on Hoagie, going to him in the in the $20 this week and the $5, those huge contests, 40,000 plus entries. I think that's a great call.
Hot guy.
Yeah, want to talk to you about a guy that's coming back from injury that's honestly exceeded my expectations given the injury that he had and the surgery he had. It's Lanto Griffin. We saw Kevin Chappell go through the exact same surgery. Obviously, he didn't come back as good because he's really never recovered. But Lanto Griffin looks like he's back to normal, so to speak. Again, only one or two tournaments, but 7,600, I got to be honest, I'm interested this week.
Yeah, I think that's fine. It was kind of a wait and see last week. I just not that eager to jump on people unless I was like MMA.
Especially a back injury.
To a few.
Yeah,
especially for a back injury. Again, injuries for like golf aren't quite the same. Like, guys are gonna play, they're feeling okay to swing it. Like, it's very rare for like a Xander to just like, I'm gonna stick it out and then withdraw. NBA guys are testing ankles or football and then they get hurt again. It's like in golf. If he's playing, he's probably been playing for a couple of weeks. He's probably fine.
Yep.
So he did look good last week.
He did.
And that was a long golf course, a tough golf course. Not a great Sunday, but no one really played well on Sunday.
Yeah, he's a grinder. Yeah.
I think now's a good time at the price before it starts hopping back. Otherwise, like if we looked at him last summer in this field, he would have been close to 9K.
Yeah, 80. He'd be right there with Alex Smalley. Definitely. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So wanted to bring him up.
I like it.
All right, now we need to find somebody below 7K in case we want to get super aggressive like I tried to at this event quite a bit. I know it gets thin. We've got the Ryder Cup captain from Europe there, Luke Donald. He did have a couple of good starts over December in the European Tour, or DP World Tour, I should say. A name that sticks out statistically because he's looked good around the green and on the green, and you got 3 days to play, so we want somebody who can make some putts, is Tyson Alexander down at 6,600, just a name I pulled out from the data. Any names that have stuck out to you under 7K this week? And Ted Potter does not count.
So a weird one, and I'm not sure why it's occurring, but Bryce Barnett's popped up a few times for me, and I can't looking deeper. Like the course history doesn't look good. Recent form is kind of spotty. Like last week was pretty bad, but it's not a good course.
Is it the weighted on the driving accuracy? Does he hit a ton of fairways maybe, or?
He does.
Yeah. Okay.
He's not very long.
Yeah.
But I've seen him pop up on some projections as well. It's interesting. So I think Garnett at 6,500, I'll probably throw into a few that's super cheap. Outside of that, there wasn't a ton of guys that just like popped out because like the normal cheap guys I'm going to recently, like this year, Kevin Yu. They're all over 7,000. So
Kevin Yu, Carl Yuan, yep.
Yeah, so Garnett's the only cheap guy that kind of stood out. And again, it doesn't look great. It's not like a home run. But that's also a good thing. He's not going to be like a chalky cheap guy. So the accuracy maybe plays a part here. That maybe he knows this is a course that he needs to do something because he hasn't been doing well these other events, and he can't get into the elevated events without something good. So maybe there's some added motivation.
Just a couple more in this low 7K range because it seems like we're both on track. It's a very tough below 7K. So a couple of names that stick out using the FGB mixed model. Matty Schmid coming in at 7,100. He ranks about 73%. That's pretty good. Ben Taylor, we've seen pop up a couple of times. He was actually part of my top 5 value video this week. He's had a couple of really good starts coming off of a couple missed cuts. So either of those names, Taylor or Schmid, stick out to you this week.
Yeah, I think Taylor's fine. Schmid, I'm not. I still can't.
Can't get there?
Well, I don't mind it, but it's not a golf course where length is a huge advantage. And
would you rather play Kevin Streelman then, I guess, at the same price?
To be honest, I'll tell you a guy that I'm looking to play this week.
Yeah.
That no one's going to be on is Mr. Jimmy Walker.
Oh, that was another guy I was going to ask you about. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jimmy Walker's got great course history. He's won here before, has tons of top 10s or top 20s. And if you look through his like recent form, it's been pretty bad.
Yep.
He's got really good POA splits, which is a good thing. Last week, he gained around the green and putting, which isn't a terrible losing off the tee and approach on that golf course because that's not really his thing.
Yep.
But I think having some good vibes here at 6,900, maybe like the Ted Potter out of nowhere win that no one expects. So Jimmy Walker's a guy that I'm actually going to play this week for sure.
Yeah, interesting note on Walker. A couple of things that I read about him. First and foremost, it was his best finish, in over 2 years, I think, last week, which is great. He battled with Lyme disease, and it really just kind of affected his whole life. I mean, here's this guy who was a major champion, we soon forget, and he was going to be done with playing golf, and come to find out he didn't even know about his career money exemption that he had. His son told him, hey, Dad, why don't you give it one more try? And all of a sudden, here he is back on tour. He played great last week. This is a course where doesn't have to hit it far. So, yeah, really interesting name, Jimmy Walker. Definitely somebody to look forward to look at this week. So, all right, tomorrow is the lock. I think it's going to be probably around 11:30 or 12, I would guess. It is going to be long rounds, about 5 hours. Anything else you want to make note about the AT&T Pebble before I plug what we've got going on next week for the Waste Management?
I don't know. I was going to look at some trends to see like what kind of handicaps the AM partners need to be at for the winner to come from. But, you can get into the weeds pretty good this week.
Yeah, Josh Allen deciding to forego his responsibility for the NFL and play in the PGA. You gotta love that.
Yeah, I'm curious when these guys actually sign up. Like he's like, yeah, I'm gonna play in that, and then make it to the Super Bowl. I was like, well, I can't play, or get to the divisional and not as motivated. He wants to go play Pebble. But
yeah, I would choose playing Pebble over a flag football game. I think I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, it's such a cool golf course, like the area. I wish they had video and cameras on the other two courses because I've heard Spyglass is like insane. Some of the views that you see over Pebble. To be honest. So.
Greg Chalmers was tweeting out from basically every hole, and it was just cool to see because, like you said, we don't get the cameras on the other ones.
Yeah, I've heard Spyglass has better views, and obviously Pebble has some of the best views in the world. But I've heard Spyglass is kind of
right up there,
hidden gem because they don't get to see much of it. But yeah, it's just a fun course to watch, and it's unfortunate the Pro-Am is kind of gives it a weaker field with the elevated event next week.
Yeah, like Davis Thompson withdrew. Wait, Davis Thompson withdrew this week just so he can play next week. That would have never happened in the past, but here we are.
So, but it is what it is. I'm looking forward to it. I do like watching Pebble.
Me too.
See it all the time. and the major only shows up once every 8 years or so. So
I do like it as well. Okay, well, next week we are, for the elevated event, we are going to bust out our first live stream. It'll be through our YouTube, so join us for that. It's more than likely going to be on Wednesday. A great event, though. That's going to be a lot of fun next week. Also, don't forget, though, this week it's the biggest DFS slate of the year so far with no NFL going on. If you missed part of this and want to listen back, of course, it will be, I'm going to go and cut it up probably in about an hour. So if you do want to go back and listen to some of our beginning stuff, you'll be able to do that. So thanks for joining, everybody. Drew, just give me the winner to sign us off here.
Hoagie, back-to-back.
Hoagie, back-to-back. There you have it, folks. So we'll see everybody next week for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Good luck. See you on the other side. Cheers, everybody.